1% of dudes rapping, they ain't nice as me. 98% ain't live the same type of life as me. The judge gave me life and then they sent me where the life is be. That level 4 with depth and vice, the type of stuff they like to see. Two choices, fight or flee. I refuse to die a chump. I never been a mark, but damn, it's scary when that riot jump. I seen dudes cry, get pumped, and some sexually brutalized. Knew a dude who lost his life and he was only doing 5 year-long racial fights when homie all you do is ride. Lonely days and nights up in a hole causing suicide. From the moment you arrive, you see the Mexican mafia, AB skinheads with big giant swastikas, pro-black philosophers, the BGF, the Kumi, and Muslims who will murk you from the nation to the Sunni. That MS was loony, quick to ride up on they rival. Even Christians went to church, hide knives up in a Bible. Political and tribal, the Crips and Damus, the Long Beach, the Hubs and the Dubs and the Grooves, the IE, the Bakersfield, the Dago Pyrus, the hustlers quick to roll, the gangsters don't move. Whatever click you choose, you better say what's cracking YouTube. It's your boy 16 to life, and I'm back like I'm on a parole violation. Yard down. We got Broken Bobby. He is a YouTuber. He also has a prison show, prison channel. So on YouTube, of course. So I want you guys to go check it out. That's Broken Bobby, and he's going to give you an experience. As you guys know who watch my channel, this is going to be a unique experience because we have somebody who done time in the California prison system, and of course it'll be from the perspective of another race. So thank you for coming on my show, Bobby, and introduce yourself.
Absolutely. Okay, I'm Broken Bobby. The channel's Broken Bobby's Transformation. I did altogether, I did a lot of county time. At one point, I was on probation in Riverside, San Bernardino, and Los Angeles counties all at the same time. And eventually, I caught a prison term. I did 2 years in California State Prison, and I turned my life around. And that's kind of what my channel's about. I actually went to school after I got out to be a drug and alcohol counselor, and I wanted to work in the prison system doing such, but unfortunately they did prison reform right as I was finishing up, so I ended up going another route. But a lot of people seem to enjoy my stories, and I figured I could tie the two together on YouTube and hopefully help some people to get over, you know, what they're going through and not live the life I did. Because growing up, I thought that, you know, I was predestined to go to prison, and eventually I ended up there, and a lot of the stuff that I was told wasn't true. So, you know, I'm dispelling some myths and, you know, giving some tips on just being sober and not having to go through the stuff that I did.
And, you know, I think it was interesting, Bobby, that you said right there that growing up, you felt that you was predestined to go to prison. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? Why did you feel like that?
Well, originally, okay, so as I was really old enough to start understanding stuff, I was living in San Bernardino, and, you know, there's that thing on the streets where, you know, you get that big homie status because you've been to the pen. And, you know, I seen what a lot of people were doing out there, which was, you know, hustling, you know, dealing dope. And I seen an opportunity and I jumped in. And, you know, I, like everybody I knew, like in high school and stuff, like they're either dead or went to prison. And like we all pretty much knew, you know, the ones that were living the life like we were anyways, you know, like we knew what time it was, you know. And like I was brought up by like some old school type convicts, you know, believing in, you know, you're gonna do your time. And, you know, like it wasn't like I wasn't doing anything, and I was like suddenly surprised, like, wow, I have handcuffs on. Like I knew what was up, but the lifestyle was addicting. And, you know, that's what, you know, ultimately had me in and out all those times, and ultimately in prison.
And so that's, you know, that's interesting, Bobby, because I don't think I've never interviewed anybody who went to prison and ran with the woods before. And so, you know, I know a lot of times in the urban culture, you know, where you have blacks and you have Mexicans, we're schooled from an early age by our older homies, older cousins, older brothers at times, on in the event we
do happen to get caught while we're in this negative lifestyle to keep quiet, to not tell, not rat. How was your upbringing along those lines? Were you schooled on the same things?
Absolutely. Well, my father was a convict, and he was also a hustler. You know, like he wasn't dealing drugs and stuff, but he found a way to hustle used cars or something, you know, and he went to prison, and like that was he's gone now, rest in peace, Dad. But one of the things that he really instilled in me was, you know, if you're going to do the crime, you're going to do the time. And just because you're having a bad day doesn't mean you have to make someone else have a bad day. So, you know, that paired with, you know, growing up in San Bernardino, there was a lot of Hispanic influence. You know, I hung around with a lot of the homies in the neighborhood. I never got put on the gang, but, you know, I was out there wheeling and dealing and, you know, doing dirt with them. And like that was, you know, back then that was the code. You know, like you didn't snitch. You know, you ride your beef. And, you know, even if you're caught up on something where maybe you don't feel like it was your fault, you know, it's just what it is. It's you know, you're in the game, and that's sometimes there's collateral damage, you know.
Right. And so as far as you can remember, how old were you? Can you think back to when, you know, your father started instilling the, you know, the code of the streets in you as far as riding your own beef and things of that nature?
That was, like, I would say probably the early 80s, maybe that's 14, 15 that I can remember, because, you know, I basically had hopped off the porch, if you will, and like I got into the game. And, you know, I was nickeling and diming in the hood, and like he knew what was going on. He didn't approve of what I was doing, but, you know, like he really instilled that, you know, at some point you're going to end up in handcuffs. You know, everybody likes to think that they're special and that they're going to do it different. And like it for the most part, it don't work that way. Nobody really retires from this stuff, you know? So, you know, at some point you're going to take a fall. And when you do, it's on you.
Right. Right. And so you was telling me earlier that initially you was raised in Long Beach. So let's go back a little bit and
yes, sir.
For a time period, give the listeners what year you was born in and stuff like that.
Okay, so I was born in 72, and I want to say like around 78-ish, we moved into the Carmelitas housing projects in North Long Beach.
Okay.
And I think that, you know, we were one of a few white families in there, but, you know, I was hanging around with the other kids, and we're out running around doing our thing. And as I remember it, I think it's different now, but as I remember it, the predominant gang in there was the Insane Crips. So, you know, as we're running around, we're saying that we're junior insanes, basically. And yeah, that's what we were doing, fighting with people and, you know, doing the things that you do as a youngster. And in 83, we ended up moving out of there and heading to San Bernardino for what was supposed to be a better life, but it was a new cast of characters is all it was really in reality.
For everybody that's not from California and maybe not familiar with the areas of Long Beach, even though I'm not from Long Beach, I've definitely heard people from Long Beach mention the Carmelitas several times. So had you guys possibly stayed in Long Beach longer, you possibly may have been a Crip.
I believe I would have, honestly, because that's the way it was heading. And like I said, basically we were, you know, me and 3 or 4 little homies, and we were running around and, you know, doing all the stupid stuff that kids do at that age, and, you know, trying to outdo each other and, you know, fighting with people and stuff. And yeah, I honestly believe had we not moved out, that's the route I would have gone.
And then, so you said you guys moved to San Bernardino, and it was pretty much Same crowd, just a different place, huh?
Yes, sir. It was, well, it went from, you know, basically the guys I was running around with being black to the guys I was running around with being Hispanic, but not much difference. You know, the big neighborhood from San Bernardino, I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with what that is. You know, I got family members from there, in-laws from there, and yeah, like it just continued from there, basically.
So you say around the age of 14 is when you hopped off the porch and started getting involved in illegal activities. What were some of the things that you were doing?
I was selling meth, basically. Well, it started off as weed, and it progressed to meth. And like I was just nickel and diming at that point, though, like just you know, trying to put a little bit of money in my pocket. I didn't really understand the whole concept of it all yet at that point. Like a few years later, my sister would get involved with a guy that was really heavy in the game, and he would put me onto some bigger things. We were transporting to Vegas at that time, and like I really got some exposure when that started.
Right. And I know I was going to Montana selling drugs out there, and I remember me and a friend, his father happened to live in Vegas, and we just passed through there. And I remember him mentioning back, especially back in the late 80s, early 90s, Vegas, Nevada had some extremely, I think they had a zero tolerance for drugs out there. So if you had got caught out there, that would have been some serious time out there in Vegas.
Yes, sir. In fact, we got pulled over one night heading out there, and I think we had just crossed state line, and it was a state trooper. Maybe I don't know if we were across state line or if we were still in Cali, but the cop pulled us over, and he said we were impeding traffic. Now, back then, there wasn't a whole lot of, I mean, it was early in the morning, like 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, probably. And like he knew what time it was, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
He said, you know, he asked some qualifying questions, like, you know, you're staying for the weekend. Well, where's your clothes? You know, how much money are you bringing? And like, I didn't have any good answers for that, you know? So he starts tearing up the car. He didn't find anything, but the next week, you know, I kind of took a step back, and the guy that we were running for ended up getting shot by a childhood friend.
Wow.
So, yeah, interesting turn of events there. But, you know, the cop even said, you know, you're going to do 20 years in prison if I find anything, because, you know, we're a zero tolerance state. Like, you know, they didn't want the California stuff coming up, but the value was so much higher there because it was dry.
Right.
That it was very profitable to do that at that time.
Once you're back in California, you continue hustling or at least living in the life. At what age do you find yourself in some serious trouble?
So, yeah, so somebody had come over to the pad, and they were running their mouth, and we ended up over there with some guns, and, you know, like a sort of a standoff type of situation, and a school police come rolling up, and it turned into I wouldn't call it a high-speed chase, but it turned into a chase. And we were able to get rid of some of the weapons, but not all of them. And that ended up being my first case in San Bernardino County.
Right. And so what was San Bernardino County like? Because you're extremely unique in the fact that you've served time in San Bernardino County, Riverside County, and LA County. So you've hit all three counties out here. So what was time like in San Bernardino? Because I've heard that pretty much in all counties it's a little more difficult doing time as a white person, because your numbers aren't strong in those county jails. So what was it like?
San Bernardino back then was wild. They used to take you to, it was called CDC, and it was on Rialto Avenue. I think this was before West Valley was opened out there in Rancho Cucamonga. but they took you to CDC, and the notorious tank was Jumpin' Jay. They put me in there, and that place was wild. I wasn't in there very long. I ended up copping a plea deal for some county time on that one, and they sent me out to Glen Helen. But you know, as far as the whites go, we had numbers, but the biggest problem in the white car that you know, especially in the county jails that I see is, you know, not everybody's down to ride. And even though we may have equal numbers, I don't know how many of these guys I can count on. And this isn't a knock, because there's a lot of really solid woods out there, and like skinheads and others that fall under that white umbrella. But you know, the thing is, a few of these guys are going to be hiding in the corner if something kicks off. And you know, I've experienced this in LA County in a riot, and it's hard to gauge.
And so, as you said that, right, I'd never heard that before. So I was sitting here thinking, and do you think that while the numbers may be equal, less people are willing to ride because maybe you have less people in the white car than you do? I mean, you have less people who haven't grown up in situations like the blacks and the Mexicans and who grow up gangbanging, so who are more used to violence. Do you think that plays a part in it?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I mean, the thing is, you get some people that are just, you know, they probably shouldn't even be there, to be honest. You know, I mean, I don't know what half of these people get busted for, but, you know, I've seen it time and time again, especially in San Bernardino County, when, you know, there's tension or something with the whites and another group faction. You know, some of these guys are back there in the bunk area, like trying to stay as far away from stuff as possible. And, you know, I guess they don't realize that, you know, by doing that's not going to help you, because once this situation's over, we're going to come deal with you. Might as well come out there and give it your all and get a little respect. But, you know, I mean, I guess if you weren't raised in this type of climate, you know, maybe they don't understand and they think it's going to be okay, but, you know, it's really not.
And so when a white person's enter the jail, and you know, because a lot of times I know, at least for the blacks, you know, when we enter county jail, a lot of times there's always people to ask us, you know, where we're from, meaning what gang we're from and stuff. And of course, everybody that's black who goes to prison is not gang affiliated, but you know, sometimes there are some type of, you know, pretty much rules that are given to us to let us know what's required of us in the event a situation like this happens. So is it also like that with the whites, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's not so much about where we're from, but any place reputable, I guess you would say. Like I've been in some really, like San Bernardino County. The last time I was there, they had me in Module 15, and that was one of the softest places I've ever been in my life. And I ended up actually getting rolled up out of there. But let me answer the question first, and then I'll tell you the story. So most places that you go as a white man in jail, somebody's going to get with you and they're going to give you the rundown. Okay, these are Southsider tables and our tables. These are the black tables. You know, like these are our phones. These are our toilets, type of thing. And basically give you the rundown as far as what's going on. If you're really green, they may give you a little further as far as that goes. But yeah, somebody, whether it be the rep of the dorm or maybe just somebody that's striving to be in that position, will usually get with you and give you the rundown.
I have a question for you, Bobby. As you know, doing time and have done time before in the California system, you have sometimes you have groups of whites who are referred to as white boys, and I've even heard whites refer to themselves as white boys. Is that an offensive term, or what is your take on that?
I think it depends on the context of it, you know, like, you know, I see myself as a white. I don't know. I don't try to buy too much into that stuff because I know who I am, and you know, if anything, I'm a peckerwood when it comes to when it came to that, I should say. Let me be clear on that, because you know I'm not involved in that lifestyle anymore, and you know now all I'm worried about is you know doing well for my family and trying to help others. You know.
For those listening who may not be familiar with the term peckerwood, can you break that down if you can, and also then explain the difference between a peckerwood and a skinhead?
Sure. Okay, so as you come into jail, like you have your different groups. You have Southsiders, you have the blacks, the PAISAS, and the woods. And like the way I always looked at it was the peckerwood title is more earned. Anybody that's white is a wood, but once you put in some work, now you're a peckerwood, and it's almost like a pecking order, I guess. You know, like I remember being in LA County and somebody saying, "Yeah, I'm a peckerwood, homeboy," and I thought, okay, so you know you're a solid one. Now you also have the skinheads, and there's a million different factions of those guys. Those guys typically in prison are the frontline soldiers. Well, wherever you're at in the county jail as well, and they're going to be more hardline with stuff. You know, if you're doing something with another race or something maybe that is frowned upon amongst our group, then typically they're going to be the ones that are going to push a line on that type of a situation.
Right. So in some situations, the woods are the guys who come in and just do their time, and the skins are pretty much like maybe the gatekeepers of certain type of I guess rules that you guys go by in prison.
Yeah, and there's you know, like I referred to them as the peckerwoods of the regular white guys.
Right.
And you know, they'll push a line. Like I've pushed lines in the county on things when I didn't think they were right. And you know, the thing is like it's the politics, and you know, I don't necessarily agree with all of it, but I understand why the politics are there. And it's, you know, in my opinion, it's to not let some, you know, because in prison and even in some county jail situations, you know, something that people that have never been locked up might think is stupid could cause war and people get hurt or even killed, you know?
Right.
So, you know, that's why I believe the politics are there. You know, some people may have other agendas and supremacist type feelings, but you know, that's I've never been that type of a person, but
right.
You know, I do understand why those things are practiced.
And so in your opinion, what's the difference between, if any, between San Bernardino County and Riverside County, doing time as a wood or whatever?
Okay, so doing time as a wood in San Bernardino or Riverside, I'll throw that out there. There's a lot more woods in San Bernardino and Riverside County. In LA County, most places I've been, you know, there might be, you know, on a whole tier or in a whole dorm, there might be 2 or 3 of us. And, you know, assessing the situation, I feel like I'm on my own most of the time, you know? Like right. If you get another solid 1 or 2, you feel pretty good in LA County. In San Bernardino and Riverside counties, there's a lot more woods. The numbers are a lot more even, but it's just a matter of who can you rely on, who's going to be solid if there's tension or something needs to be taken care of.
I've always heard that LA County is an extremely dangerous place to do time. And I also heard that it's hard, or it's definitely harder doing time in LA County as a white person, as a wood, so on and so forth. So what is your assessment on those things?
Oh, absolutely. LA County's as far as the county jails, you know what? I would say even prison, LA County's the worst place I've ever been. And a big reason for that is just because we don't have any numbers. From what I understand, like if you're a skinhead or something, they have like a skinhead module where they send them. So like if you're a regular wood rolling up in there, like half of these guys are, you know, they're smoked out or they're just not with the business. So, you know, and the one time where we actually had decent numbers in LA County Supermax out at Pitches Detention Center in Wayside, we had 9 woods, well, 9 whites, because there were skins and there was actually an NLR guy in there too. We ended up kicking off a riot.
And who was that riot with?
That one was with the PAISAS primarily, but there was a few Southsiders that jumped as well. And honestly, like, you know, I'm very militant when I'm doing time. Like, I'm very aware of how many of each, you know, like if there's tension with like the PAISAS on that one, for example, you know, if you include the Southsiders, there was 45 of them and there was 9 of us. Mm-hmm. And, you know, some people were getting ready to go out to court. So our numbers were about to dwindle even more. And the big homie that was in there, he said, we're going to kick it off. And, you know, I was like, well, here we go, you know, but that's the life of being locked up, because you're not going to let anybody do anything disrespectful to you, because, you know, in a way, that's all you have is your honor.
And so let me ask you, for the people who may have never been to prison and they may not know or may not understand, in a situation like that where you guys are up against what may seemingly be unsurmountable odds, 9 to 45, mm-hmm. And why did you guys choose to kick it off?
Okay, so what happened? What happened was the guy that had the keys for us, he was down from prison. From what he had said, he already had a life sentence. He was fighting a death penalty case, and he was part of one of those big organizations. He claimed he was a Nazi lowrider, and basically, you know, in LA County, they call it a shower line. So it's kind of like with the phones, you know, if you want to get in the shower, like there's 100 men for 2 showers. So, you know, you're not just going to waltz in there, but basically if you want to get a shower, you go to the shower. Hey, is anybody waiting? This guy's waiting. And then you run down the line. Well, the rep for the PAISAS jumped the shower line on our rep, and our rep fired on him in the shower, and that didn't spontaneously kick it off, surprisingly. But, you know, so word was circulating around, hey, stay on your toes. Something's probably going to happen. Just be ready. And this went on for a day or 2 or 3. And, you know, we were talking about it, and it was like, you know, if they're not going to say it's a dead issue, we're just going to kick it off, because, you know, I'm sure, you know, like the anxiety and the stress, right, of that tension, like it really wears on you, you know, and it sometimes it's better to just let's do this, and the pieces will fall where they may.
And so once you guys chose to kick it off, how did that turn out for you guys?
It wasn't real great, to be honest with you. It worked out pretty good for me, honestly, though, in that situation, because, you know, we were grouped up at the bottom of the steps, and they were sitting at the picnic tables, you know, not too far away from us, maybe 10 or 15 feet. And like, we just rushed them, but somebody hit me from the back and knocked me down. And when I jumped back up, there were like 3 of them guys on the big homie. And I rushed over in and assisted him, and he started sending the word all over the place that, you know, I was solid wood, and that, you know, like all of a sudden everybody's asking me, do I need anything, you know, like, right. So, you know, initially I thought he was kind of BSing the way he was talking, but he definitely walked the walk that he talked. So, you know, we kicked it off. They pepper sprayed and did all that stuff and got it all quelled. And funny thing is, me and one other wood got left behind with 2 woods that didn't participate. So it went from 9 to 45 to 7 to 45. And I'll tell you, the anxiety level went to 1,000 now that it's just us 4 in there, and most of the PAISAS were still there. Oh. So I had to go over and have a conversation with the PAISAS and, you know, see if it was a dead issue or what it was. And it ended up being a dead issue. It was dead at that point, but we still had some business to take care of with those 2 woods that didn't participate. So we went back there and got on them, took all their commissary and everything, and instructed them to go up to the gate and tell them that they're hearing voices, because we weren't going to live with those guys, you know?
Right.
Because basically, if somebody jumps on you, I'm going to have your back. If you're not going to do the same for me, then I'm not going to live with you.
Right. And so let me ask a question here, or make pretty much kind of ask a question, but also kind of make a statement. So I'm assuming that due to you guys' numbers being low, when you come in as a white or a wood or what have you, you're pretty much embraced. You're pretty much embraced by the other whites and woods. We all know that in the California prison system, in the county jail system, the Southerners they're all unified when they come in there, regardless of what they may have going on the streets with each other. So for you to be white and to come in and see, because you had explained to me earlier, and I believe I saw a video of yours. You were talking about how the blacks will come in and often immediately have to run fades with each other, depending on what gangs they're from and what gangs are in that same pod that they're being housed in. From a person from a different, who's from a different type of collective, what was your perspective on all that?
You know, to be honest with you, I thought it was insanity. You know, and I mean, no disrespect to you know, the Crips and the Bloods or anything, but you know, when you come in there, especially in LA County, you know, and you're in a dorm setting, you know, I mean, the Southsiders are deep, and you know, some places the blacks are deep as well. Don't get me wrong. There have been places where it's predominantly black in there, but you know, as the introductions are going on, you know, I heard him say, "Hey, you know, you got some fades waiting for you back here." So, you know, as an example, if you're from a neighborhood that's beefing with another neighborhood on the streets, and you both end up in the same dorm, you know, if there's 4 of them, of your enemies in there, you got to run fades with all of them. And it seems to me like you're just breaking yourself down in that situation when you really need all hands on deck, because, you know, the Southsiders, their street beefs stay on the street. It's all unified in there, and they're a force. You know, I mean, shout out to the Southsiders. Like their program is tight.
And so I get a lot of questions a lot of times, people asking me, and who's the deepest, and sometimes numbers matter, but sometimes numbers don't matter as much as being unified. But in your opinion, who's deeper, the Southsiders or the blacks?
Are we talking about LA County?
Yes, or LA County and
LA County
and your prison experience as well.
I would say in both, the Southsiders are usually deeper, and but the thing is, you got to realize a lot of times the PAISAS are going to jump with the Southsiders.
Right.
So and sometimes the woods do as well. You know, I mean, you know, I've seen situations like that, and you know, sometimes I wonder, like, this isn't our business. What's going on here? But you know, all that being said, you know, I would say, like, in LA County, it's pretty equal numbered for the most part between the blacks and the Southsiders. Maybe the Southsiders have a slight edge, but when you add in the PAISA faction with it, like, they're way ahead, you know, in numbers.
Right. And so how did you finally end up taking your first trip to prison, and when you went, and how much time were you initially sentenced to serve?
Okay, so initially I was sentenced to 2 years, and there's kind of a backstory to that though. So I'm in LA County Jail, and like I was kind of down on my luck at that time, and I had probation. I had a probation officer in Pomona, I had a probation officer in Temecula, and I had a probation officer in San Bernardino, and I'm riding the bus to see these guys. So, you know, I catch that new case, and I'd see the public defender, and the public defender tells me, you know, we could probably get you a county lid. And just to be clear, a county lid is a year in the county. And, you know, I'm thinking to myself, okay, so like, and this had been happening. Like I caught a case in Riverside, and okay, so we're going to give you 9 months. And then once I'm done doing the 9 months there, they send me to San Bernardino. Same thing. Then off to LA, same thing. So, you know, like, I don't know, you know, maybe people that don't understand being locked up, you know, 27 months in the county between 3 counties. I'd much rather be in prison to do that if that were the case, because, you know, but getting back to it. So they're telling me they want to give me a county lid, and I tell them, you know, what about a prison sentence? Let me get rid of, I just want one parole officer that I can deal with and make sure that I can get to the office, and, you know, because I was ready to turn things around and do right. But with all those probation officers, it was hectic riding the bus, and like jobs don't understand that, you know, you got to go check in with these guys. So, you know, I told him, well, what kind of prison deal can you get me? And he said, well, 2 years. And I said, where do I sign? Let's do it, you know?
Uh-huh. And so what prison did you eventually wind up being sent to?
Initially, I went for reception in North Kern, Delano. And yeah, so I was there for, probably about 2 months. And they sent me to a CCF, which is a community correctional facility. I'm not sure if they're still doing those CCFs or not, but it's like a camp, I guess. It's very low security, and a lot of people don't think much of those places, but you know, when it goes down, it's pretty hectic.
And so for people out there listening who may not be familiar with the California prison system, a CCF is basically a minimum security prison, and at some prisons some of those prisons you can take a firefighting trade, and so and then be certified to fight fires, and if you choose, get out and, you know, make a decent amount of money. And so a lot of times you have access to the streets. The crews maybe will go out and clean up the parks, and sometimes they'll have people drop off, you know, weed or tobacco and cigarettes. So for some, they enjoy it and say it's a sweet way to do time. What was your experience like?
So when I was endorsed to McFarland CCF in McFarland, which is a little ways down the road. So I get on a van, and they go basically across the street, like a 5-minute van ride. And we're at Delano CCF, and the transportation officer's saying, you know, you're off here. And I'm like, I'm not here. And you don't want to mess with them transportation guys. They're a different breed. Right. But yeah, he said, you know, get off my effing van. Okay, gotcha, boss. So I get down, I go in there, and this is a small compound, maybe 500 guys max. And they you know, they give me my bedroll and everything, and I'm walking in, and I come across what's known as the mini yard. It's like a concrete yard, and it goes off in different directions to the different wings of this place. And as soon as I walk in, I could feel the tension. It's quiet. I see all the woods grouped up, and I'm like, oh boy, really? Are we doing this already? So I go over and I'm like, what's cracking, fellas? And they're like, you might want to set that down. And, seconds later, it kicked off. And one thing, a lot of if you parole from a CCF, a lot of people on the streets that I was raised around think that's kind of a joke, but I'll say this, when it cracked off, they don't have correctional officers there. They have these security guards, and there's no gun coverage. They don't have any pepper spray or anything. They lock the door, and they call the nearest prison to come in and support, to quell the situation. So luckily, like I said, we were less than 5 minutes away. That riot went on for like 45 minutes, and unless you're Floyd Mayweather or something, most of us, like, I was a workout monster, and like we were pretty much like going in. It was almost like a tag team match. Like, you jump in there, get your squabbles, and then you get winded, you kind of back off, somebody else jumps in, and like it was all over the place, and it was hectic.
And so let me ask you, who was that particular riot between?
That was with the PAISAS once again. And I wasn't even there long enough to figure out what it was about or anything. Like, they put us in the hole there. I wouldn't exactly call it ADSEG. I guess they would call it that, but just a little cell in one of the dorms. Like, there's a row of them, and we were stored there, and then transportation came and got us a few days later and took me to another CCF that was a higher security level. It had some extra barbed wire or something. I don't know.
And so, in any of the times you've been to prison and done time, have you ever been involved in a riot against the Southsiders?
Not in prison. I there was once in the county, in Riverside County. We kicked it off with them, and that was basically over a table. All the tables, I guess, in the area that was shared were designated Southsiders tables. And some of the skins in there didn't like that. We wanted to have our own designated table. And that was another one of those situations where, like, I was only there a day or so when that kicked off.
And so you have people who watch my channel who've asked me previously, and some people may be surprised to hear that, because I believe on YouTube, a lot of people believe that that the whites have an alliance with the Southsiders. But is it more of an alliance, what you describing, or what you describing more of a loose understanding?
I would say it's more of a loose understanding. I mean, we were allowed to program together most places, like county jail. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like prison, it depends on where you're at. When I finally made it up to the 3-yard at Delano, we weren't programming with them. We had shared areas, but it wasn't like that. Like in reception, I was working out with these guys, and somebody tried to push a line on that even. But honestly, I hate to say it, but I related more to some of those guys than I did to my own people in there. But I think that's just my my upbringing and who I was raised around.
And so that may be strange for some people to hear. Have you ever ran across any guys who didn't want you associating with the Southerners, even though you guys shared common areas and stuff?
Associating, I would say no. We were able to, like, you could get a soup from them or give them a soup, or, some people were buying drugs from them. I never indulged in that stuff when I was locked up. But, yeah, like, but you know, with the blacks, we weren't allowed to do that at all. In most of the places I was in, LA County was pretty strict about that. But yeah,
Now, despite you guys being not able to do business with blacks, do you know of anybody that did, or do you think people did? Do you think people disregarded the rules and did you know, because wanting to get high in prison and maybe a certain collective is the one
absolutely,
that has the drugs, you know, that's a lot to make some people, you know, try to be slick and disregard.
My celly, when I hit that 3 yard, we were on a lockdown, and all of you know, he's a peckerwood, and all he did was complain about the skinheads, and now, you know, we're not allowed to buy stuff from the blacks, but they're over there doing backdoor deals to get the black, basically,
Right.
the drug. And you know, how it was a double standard, and like I thought that potentially there was going to be an issue there between the Woods and the Skins on that, because he was very opinionated and he had been around.
And then so the Woods and the Skins, so they're in prison, even though they're all white, they're still two different collectives. Does one have any more say so over the other?
Now there's differences to that. Like a lot of the Skins, you know, there's Peni, which is you know, they're under our big homies, from what I understand, or at least that's the way it was when I was doing time. And those guys wield a lot of power. They usually, from what I understand, they usually have the yards on the higher levels, and one had the yard when we were on the 3. But like, I'd say regular Skins, like we're equals basically. You're not gonna dictate our program, and we're not gonna dictate yours. It's whatever's coming down from above.
And so how was doing time different on the 3 yard from the other spots that you've been?
The 3 yard was you know, I know a lot of people that were on 4s, and they talk about the respect level. That was the one thing I really noticed. Like the respect level was like 1,000 times more, you know, like you always say, excuse me, you make it a point not to be in areas you're not supposed to be in. You don't, you know, the standard stuff like not cutting between the tables, not using the wrong phone type of thing. And like, it's just ultra respectful in comparison. On the lower levels and even in reception, there was a lot of grab ass going on, and people with the sex play, you know, like making stupid little jokes. Like I never really liked that sort of stuff. But you know, a lot of that stuff was going on the lower levels.
And what level 3 did you go to?
North Kern.
North Kern. Oh yeah, I've done some time there as well. You mentioned that the level 3 has much more respect than the level 2s, the CCS and stuff like that. So that was a great segue into my next question. What are your feelings on Wes Watson?
Wes Watson, very controversial figure, right?
Right.
You know, like when I started my channel, one of the things I didn't want to do was come out here like Wes Watson and, oh yeah, like I was knocking this out left and right, and you know, I always had the keys type of thing. Right. Like I've you know, I mean, shout out to Wes. Like he did his thing, man. He seems like he made a bunch of money, and you know, shout out to him. But he's definitely putting some extra sauce on them tacos, you know.
Right. Yeah, I you know, I heard him tell a story one time, and this was recent. I happened to run across something. It was a couple of weeks ago, and he said he was somewhere with the Southsiders. And what caught my attention is he said this Southsider with real long hair. And all the time that I've done, I've never ran across a Southsider with long hair. So I haven't looked much into his material, but I see a lot of people on him, and so I happen to stop and hear what he had to say on that. Well, matter of fact, I believe he was talking about he got into a fight with him or something. But yeah, it struck me as a little odd because I've never seen a Southsider with long hair in prison.
I haven't either. That was more of a Northerner thing, as I understand it.
Right, and so Bobby, now that you're finally out, you're doing YouTube and stuff. How has the transformation been? Have you been getting any flack, or have you been getting recognized, or what do you like about it?
I'm starting to figure some more things out here. At first, like, I was terrified in front of the camera. I didn't really know too much about this stuff. I just hit record and upload it. Now I'm learning some editing and stuff. Haven't really been recognized yet, and that's okay. That's a good thing, because believe it or not, I'm actually a very private person with my personal life. But I feel like, with this YouTube thing, hopefully I can help some people to, make some changes in their life and either not reoffend or not offend, period. I was a drug addict for a long time, and it don't have to be that way for people. They can change. And to be honest with you, I never thought I would get clean. Like, I always did that jail talk, and oh yeah, I'm going to get a job, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. And then as soon as somebody put something in front of me, like, it was on and cracking again. And I wasn't, one of those people that was out there robbing and stealing. I was dealing to support my habit. But, life is so good now. Like, I've got my family. We got a nice house and everything. I got a full-time job that I've actually held down. I never did that before. So, I just, like, I'm hoping to get my message out to people and help some people to, make the transformation that I did.
And when I first ran across your page, I thought it was extremely interesting, the name you chose for your page, Broken Bobby. How did you happen to come about that name?
Actually, my daughter gave me that name because I was looking at different names, and the transformation part obviously is that, I'm not that guy that I used to be. People that knew me back then probably wouldn't even recognize me at this point, because, now I go out of my way to try to do the right thing. But, as a child, I went by Bobby. So Broken Bobby's transformation is what developed from that. And that was thanks to my daughter, Ramona. Shout out to her.
Right. And 1 second. And so, yeah, I've actually watched a couple of your stories. I've seen a lot of your stories. Ooh, sorry about that.
You good?
The majority of your stories I've seen were focused on the LA County Jail. Like I said, I've always heard that the LA County Jail was an extremely rough place, and so I definitely found your content and your videos extremely interesting. Especially hearing from coming from another perspective, because like I tell everybody, when we're doing time in prison, you don't go up and ask somebody, hey man, what's going on, or what you guys in politics and this and that. So sometimes you watch from afar, you get an idea, or maybe you think you get an idea, but it's always interesting to hear, something come from someone who served time with that particular organization, clique, or whatever, man. So Once again, you guys,
Yes, sir.
if you guys want to check his channel out, I suggest you go do. It's very interesting. The name of the channel is Broken Bobby. He has some great stories. And is there anything else you would like to include or say, Bobby?
Yeah, it's Broken Bobby's Transformation at YouTube. Also, I'm on Instagram and TikTok at Broken Bobby 72. On TikTok, I like to do. It's not so much the war stories. It's more like motivational stuff to help people that are still in their addiction and some motivation to get clean and get some help. So, I really appreciate you having me on the channel, Bill. It's been an honor.
And thank you, Bobby. I appreciate you coming on my channel, sharing your experiences and your stories with us. Hopefully people will go and check you out. Like I said, once again, you guys, he's got some extremely interesting stories coming from his perspective and doing time. And so you guys definitely go check him out.